I'm Andy Poland. You're listening to ESPN 630. And we are the equivalent of a team that's down some players today. We had a power failure in our building, 4400 Jennifer Street. John Matthews, who's the news director, has worked in this building for 42 years, says this has never happened before. And we are on the air now, as you can hear my voice, and we have power now in the building. But the power outage has done a number on some of the technical equipment here. So the fancy little sounders that you hear at the beginning of the show and commercials and things like that, we're going to do away with that as the engineers work to correct the problem. But there's a microphone. There's a machine. It's called a computer, but it's a machine that plays audio, and I have selected some audio from what happened last night. As you know, I've been a fan of this team for nearly 60 years. My father took me to my first game at then DC Stadium in 1968. I've seen most of the games that have been played since then. I watched all of the disastrous years of Dan Snyder, all 24 with just a handful of playoff appearances mixed in. And I am now coming towards the end of my run. I look to stay 3 more years on the radio, and they could be 3 years that would include a Super Bowl appearance. Who knows? But the corner's been turned here. And a few years ago, I wondered how I'd finish my radio career pretty much the way I'd spent the last 24 of it, just chronicling disaster after disaster. And things are just so much different now. And what happened last night is one for the ages. And I go back on this, and boy, you got to be an old-timer on this one. But I was just a kid when this happened. This was the 1971 season. George Allen came in and said, the future is now. There was no salary cap in those days, and he could pay players what he wanted to pay them. Edward Bennett Williams, who was running the team, while Jack Kent Cooke wasn't allowed to be involved. The NFL had rules then. You couldn't own multiple franchises. So he was in Los Angeles with the Kings and the Lakers, and Edward Bennett Williams ran the team. He hired George Allen and said, you have an unlimited budget. He later joked that Allen had exceeded his unlimited budget, but with that budget, he was able to bring in veteran players with high salaries and traded away most of his draft picks from 1971 and 1972, and they won right away. They started the season 5-0. George Allen was on the cover of Newsweek, which was a big deal in those days. And I remember a game very similar to this. It was on the West Coast as George Allen had gone back to Los Angeles, where he had been fired after the 1970 season. Even though he had incredible success, his win percentage with the Rams is all-time. He just did not perform in the playoffs. The owner didn't like him, and he got rid of him. And he came to Washington in 1971. They were 5-0. Charlie Taylor got hurt. The offense was severely hampered, but they muddled through with a defense that was really good, and they went to Los Angeles. And there's maybe some symmetry here in that the Atlanta Falcons, who fired Dan Quinn several years ago, come to Washington, where Dan Quinn puts this team in the playoffs for the first time in 4 years. And let's be honest, the last playoff appearance was kind of an embarrassing appearance when they finished 7-9 and got in during the COVID year of 2020. This is totally different. And the feeling in that stadium last night, I only watched it on TV, but you could sense it through the screen, that people were there in burgundy and gold and standing for the entire game. This wasn't the visiting fans taking over. This was the hometown fans cheering for a team that many of them had abandoned and said they weren't going back until Dan Snyder got rid of the team. And now they're back, and they're back right away, much like the future is now in 1971. When Allen said that, this team had not been to the playoffs since World War II. True, there were fewer playoff teams. You only had conference champions, and then you'd have the championship and then the Super Bowl. So, in other words, like when the Jets won the Super Bowl in 1969, they had only one playoff game. They only had to beat the Raiders, and they went off and beat the Colts in Super Bowl III. So for many of those years, there weren't many playoff teams. But by 1971, the NFL had added the wild card after the merger of 1970, and they got in as a wild card team, and the euphoria in this town was unbelievable. I mean, yeah, it's only been 4 years since this was a playoff team, but let's be honest. When did you really feel good about this as a playoff team? Maybe the one that Kirk Cousins had in the 2015 season. That's nearly a decade ago. And they lost in the first round at home to the Green Bay Packers. This is totally different, and I think it's captured well in this paragraph from Barry Zerluga's column today. He said, what this represented was the precious moment in the arc of sports fandom when the present is unexpectedly good, when the future seems impossibly promising, all cast against a miserable 30-year past that makes you think hanging in there with this franchise, whatever the name, or abandoning it and then returning to the fold was worth it. This team was 4-13 and worthy of the second pick in the draft a year ago. In the first year of a new regime, it's 11-5, and it's in the playoffs. And it's in the playoffs, yes, because they have a good ownership group now. Yes, because you have a real general manager in Adam Peters. Yes, because you have an experienced coach who's truly changed the culture of this organization. But you got 5. You got number 5. And when you got number 5, the game is never over. And, yeah, they had all kinds of problems last night. Penalty after penalty. They just shot themselves in the foot again and again and again. Of the 13 penalties, I think that's what it was. Was it 13 penalties? Yes. Seemingly 10 of them were holding penalties. And some of them were dubious, but there were also calls on the other side that didn't necessarily look like holding penalties. And they just were able to persevere through it, through terrible clock management. The Falcons were forced to try a 56-yard field goal from a backup kicker. They had not had the luck with injuries that some teams have had, although it does seem to be an injury epidemic for kickers this year. Younghoe Koo was hurt, and Riley Patterson missed from 56. He was short. This day and age, you don't see top-notch kickers come up short from 56, but he did, and that led to the overtime. And, once you have that overtime and you win the flip, as they did, and they can futz with the rules as much as they want, but the rules are now you score a touchdown, it's game over. And Jaden Daniels, when he's got the ball in his hand with time on the clock, it ain't over.
The game's not over. It's never over until the clock hits 0. Whether that's in the regulation or it's in overtime, man, the game is never over. So keep fighting one play at a time and, let the chips fall where they fall.
Yeah, and they're falling in an unbelievable way for him. He's played 16 games in the NFL. Nearly a third of them, he has thrown a touchdown pass in the last 30 seconds of the game or in overtime. So this was after regulation. That's an NFL record. That's a record, which conceivably he could add to next week against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, to have seen things turn as quickly as they have, and not only that, but if you look at the comparison I'm making to the 71 team, which was an older group, which had a small window, and everybody knew it because eventually those veterans were going to get old, and there was no free agency in the NFL in those days, and you had no draft picks to build with. So the window was going to be short. And it proved to be, as they did make the Super Bowl the following year, but never got past the first round of the playoffs with Allen again, and then, took the rebuilding of Bobby Beathard in the late 70s and into the early 80s with Joe Gibbs. And to have done this in 1 year, you can say this is the second year of the Josh Harris ownership, but it's really the first year. They took over in late July of 2023. Training camp opened a week later. They were going to roll with Ron Rivera for the year, no matter what. The draft had already taken place. Free agency had already taken place, in which they'd done nothing because Snyder was selling the team and he wasn't going to spend any money. And they were going to roll with a quarterback who's looks like he's shortly out of the league soon. And Sam Howell, whose last appearance with Seattle was disastrous, and there really wasn't any chance last year. But in what they've done since the end of last season, just over 12 months, to have put together an organization that has you in this kind of circumstance where not only does the immediate future look bright, and, okay, they're going to have to go on the road, and likely it's going to be the Rams or it's going to be the Eagles, and a third time around, and a difficult situation to do. But boy, with 5 out there, you just don't know. Anything seems possible. This is how he opened up his news conference last night after working overtime to deliver the 30-24 stunner.
I'm tired right now, but I'm excited. I'm happy. The fan base waited a long time for this. I really can't put into words, how much it means to them and how much it means to me. Be able to go out there and lead this franchise and this team to opportunities like that.
You obviously had some success in the 2-minute drill. The overtime was a little bit different. What was that like, just before the overtime? What's going through your mind, and what was it like in that drive?
God bless me again, gave me the opportunity to go out there and try to win a football game, just like you did last week. It's a lot of ups and downs and adversity in this game that you go through and you go through in life. So you never waver. You stand tall, stand 10 feet down, and, go out there and try to execute the moment.
You walk us through the touchdown to Zach Ertz at the end?
Yeah, it's man coverage. I knew they were going to keep eyes on Terry, and I knew Zach had a one-on-one, and, we repped that so many times. I knew he was going to win on it. He was going to make the catch, and it was going to be game over.
Obviously, you can run. We've seen that all year, but it felt like in the second half and overtime, you were like, I'm going to make plays with my legs and kind of take control in that way. Is that kind of what's going through your mind at all?
Man, I was just trying to make plays and, help the team the best I can to win this football game. So whether that's sitting back there, throwing the ball, running, anything, man, I just want to win.
What was Marcus's message to you after that last run?
Stand up, catch your air, get your wind, and, go out there and execute. Use your God-given abilities, and let's go win this game.
How'd you feel about your performance overall today?
I could have played better. We're down the red zone. I threw a pick. Just little stuff like that. You're not going to be perfect, but you strive to be that as close as possible.
He is as nonchalant about this stuff as you could possibly imagine. Now, the pick he's talking about, that was killer. That was in the red zone, so they were in a position to get at least 3. And Atlanta took the ball, took it to the other end of the field, and tied the game at 7. And the momentum clearly swung in their favor. That's as bad a first half as Washington's played this year. Maybe even worse than the opener when Daniels was just getting his feet wet in the NFL when they lost at Tampa. Atlanta took over that game now they had taken a turnover and turned it into a touchdown and a 7-0 lead, and you got the feeling, okay, they're looking to clinch tonight. This is a young Falcon team. It's a quarterback making only his second start in the NFL in Michael Penix, and they're going to make life rough on him. But no. It was Atlanta pounding the rock, and this has been a problem all year for Washington, stopping the run. And they made I don't know what adjustments they made, because you hear those things that they're overblown halftime adjustments. But whatever they did, they were able to take care of Bijan Robinson to a large degree in the second half. And even though Penix did a hell of a job in getting this game tied after Washington, and that really – at the end of the in the fourth quarter, where they had to settle for 3, they were up 4 and could have put the game out of reach with a touchdown. They had it 2nd and goal at the 1-yard line, and they not only failed to get it into the end zone, they burned 2 precious timeouts there. Which, when they got the ball back with like 1 minute and 13 seconds to go, the running game was out of the question because they only had 1 timeout left, and they failed to get that done. They wind up punting the ball back to Atlanta, and Atlanta then tries the 56-yard field goal from Riley Patterson, which sends the game into overtime. So what he was able to do, and the numbers, they don't really belie, some of the inaccurate passes that he threw, uncharacteristic. 24 of 36, 227 yards and 3 touchdowns. And even with the interception, he had a passer rating of 100. He ran for a career-high 127 yards on 16 carries and accounted for nearly 60% of the rushing attack for Washington. And he did go past Robert Griffin III. And I don't know if you were watching this late in the game, but as he passed him for most rushing yards by a rookie, which was, I think, was it 850 that RG3 had in 2012? They showed the running styles. And I don't know where they got video of RG3 being shifty, because he was not. He was a straight-ahead runner. The signature run of his career was the touchdown run against the Vikings. Well, that was just a sprint to the goal line. What you're seeing here is a guy who's got like Earl Monroe type of moves. He's got these little deeks and dabs, and the rules are different, a little bit different than they were, I think, with Griffin. Griffin would sometimes hang out around the sidelines waiting for a late hit and get blown up, and that added to his aches and pains. Daniels, he sort of has a little standoff with the DB at the sideline and then casually steps out of bounds. They're afraid to hit him, and they're afraid to make a lunge at him because he may make a move to get back upfield. This guy's a big basketball fan, so he knows about moves in the paint and things like that, and he's able to do that. So that has made a huge difference in his game. I mentioned the structure of the team, and although he's sort of been in the background, I don't think maybe he's talked to the media once or twice, maybe at the trade deadline, and that's about it. You cannot underestimate the job that Adam Peters has done here. He again, this is one of the great moments in news conference history when David Aldridge asked him when he was introduced last January, what do you think of the current roster? And the pause was like 3.5 seconds. And he said, well, there's some pieces here. And he basically flipped it over. There's like 60% new players this year. And now they continue. I don't know if you saw this over the weekend. Fedarian Mathis, who is a second-round pick, he's gone now too. It's something like, 5 or 6 guys from 4 drafts from the Rivera era. Stunningly bad drafts. And for Peters to get players in here like Frankie Luvu and Bobby Wagner and Olamide Zaccheaus, who, as they locked up Terry McLaurin last night, they weren't going to let Terry McLaurin have a catch. Zaccheaus was fabulous, and he dropped one at the end. I mean, if he makes that, maybe they win the game in regulation. But Zaccheaus did everything that you would ask for a guy who's the number 2. I guess he would have been the number 2 yesterday, as Terry McLaurin just was in jail, basically. They had one pass to him that was completed. The others, several sailed high or low, just didn't quite get to him. But Zaccheaus, what did he have? 8 catches for 85 yards. And those are the kinds of players that have come in here and have made a huge difference. And some of them aren't even playing. Austin Eckler was a huge contributor. There's some chance he can come back next week and play against the Dallas Cowboys. But he's been out for 2 stints during the season, and they managed to fill in the blanks. They did resuscitate some of the picks. Chris Rodriguez, huge last night. They've cut him twice. And one of the times they cut him, he said, I'd like to come back here. And now he was a huge contributor last night. I don't know what happened to Brian Robinson. He doesn't seem to have quite the burst that he had earlier in the season. Maybe the injuries have caught up with him. But Rodriguez comes in on big short yardage situations, 5 carries for 16 yards, including a touchdown. Just tremendous last night. And you got to give Adam Peters all the credit for that. Peters, though, got the honor of presenting the game ball to the owner, Josh Harris, who turned 60 yesterday.
No better gift than you give a man on his 60th birthday than a playoff game. Josh Harris! Thank you guys for everything.
Quinn later asked at his news conference about that celebration.
It was cool. The guys were gassed for sure. They emptied the tank tonight, but there was a lot of joy, honestly. And just knowing I really thought this was a real demonstration of their connection. It got hard, it got behind, and over the last couple of weeks, there's been some moments like that. And they coined the term "our time," meaning that's a lock back in, that's a focus for that moment. And one of the things I admire so much about them is they're never out of the fight. I love coaching these guys, what they stand for. And so we got plenty to get better at, and we'll work like hell to do that. There's plenty of things for us to improve upon this week, and that's where we'll dig back into, heading into this week, heading out to Dallas.
Now, here's the circumstance, by the way, on what can happen next week. And the simple one is if they win, they would get the 6th seed, no matter what happens elsewhere. And the 6th seed would likely send them to Los Angeles to play the Rams. And you want to talk about some more symmetry? I've just been talking as I've been babbling along here. And by the way, if you're not hearing any commercials or any sound, we are working on that. We're working under severe conditions today because we had a power outage in the building and not all the equipment is back up and functioning. So you're hearing a lot of me babbling along, but celebrating the win last night and playing some sound bites. But it was that Rams game that I talked about at the end of the 71 season on Monday night when they clinched the playoffs for the first time and eventually got to San Francisco before losing. But this was a team that had turned around the town. I mean, if you were in town in 1971, you may feel some of the same things that you're feeling today about a rebirth of a franchise here. Remember, the Redskins had been all white until 1962, and with no free agency and only the draft to build your team, it was going to take a while to turn it around. And they did. And by 1971, they had a team that turned the town crazy. If you want to know when Redskin Mania started, it started during the 71 season. The 1974 season, that was as wild can be. That included the Clint Longley game on Thanksgiving where they were beaten. But they did make it to the playoffs. Dallas did not that year. And Washington went to Los Angeles and played the Rams. And it turned out to be Sonny Jurgensen's last game. He was sent in to relieve Billy Kilmer when he was ineffective, and Sonny threw a pick. And that was the end of the season for them, and that was the end of Sonny's incredible 11-year run here as quarterback. So here we go, 50 years later, good possibility they go back to play the Rams. Here's the scenarios for the playoffs. If they beat the Cowboys, they are the number 6 seed. Doesn't matter what happens anywhere else. They would play at the number 3 seed, which is the Rams, unless the Rams lose to the Seahawks and the Bucks beat the Saints. So I'd say the first one is not likely because Seattle's out of it, but possible. Seattle could pull an upset, and I would think that the Saints would be easily handled by the Buccaneers. But if, in fact, the Rams do lose and the Buccaneers beat the Saints, then they would play at the Bucks, who would move up in front of the Rams as the 3 seed. Rams are already in. They've clinched the division, but the Bucks would move up to the number 3 seed. If they tie or lose to the Cowboys and the Packers lose to the Bears, or if both teams end in ties, both games, the Commanders are still the number 6 seed and the above holds. So I think that the easiest path is they beat the Cowboys and they're 3-point favorites to do it. If they lose to the Cowboys and the Packers tie or beat the Bears, or the Commanders tie and the Packers win, the Commanders are the 7 seed and will play at the number 2 Eagles. So the easiest way to avoid playing Philadelphia for a third time, and I think it's a much better option to go to Los Angeles or a slim possibility of Tampa than going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. Although, here's something to think about. They got some quarterback issues. Kenny Pickett left yesterday's game. They didn't need him, and he left with some type of an injury. Jalen Hurts, you would expect, would be back, certainly for the playoffs, if not next week. But who knows? This could be a long-term concussion issue. They're not saying what it is. I mean, remember when he got hurt against Washington, he wanted to stay in the game. And they have this like eye in the sky doctor who looks at players and makes those determinations, and felt like he couldn't go back in. So that's where they stand right now. Again, I think the most likely scenario is that they beat the Cowboys next week. Be interesting to see how much they play Jaden Daniels in that game, although it's a win they'd like to have. You're looking at success in the middle part and later parts of January rather than the first weekend. So that's going to be an interesting dilemma for this organization. But I'll say this. Look, when Jaden Daniels ran 16 times in the opening game against Tampa, I think the feeling was, hey, this ain't going to last. You know, this guy's going to get hurt. It's not going to be a pretty picture. We've seen this before. He runs too much. We saw Robert Griffin's career end, other extenuating circumstances. So it's just not going to work. And here he is. He's upright, and you look at the way he runs. Now he did take some more hits last night, and he really felt like I think, had to take the team on his shoulders to do that. The running that he did in the fourth quarter was not necessarily runs that he wanted to do. And it was kind of a hold your breath type of situation, you know what I mean? And so, you know, this is Dan Quinn here on what he views as, you know, kind of a hold your breath kind of thing here, but also like, you know, this is what we needed to do to win.
Yeah, he is a dangerous player, and it's not by design that, you know, some of these runs that took place, but when the time comes to go, I thought there were some smart out of bounds runs, but there are some times when he's going to go. And it's not always, I cringe sometimes, but I also know that I know what the competitor is too.
Yeah, remember this? And Dan Quinn kind of made a joke about this at a news conference, I think it was last week, where he said all the questions at the beginning of the year were about sliding. Because this guy can't slide. And remember how awkwardly he slid in the opening game against Tampa, that forward slide? You don't see that anymore. I mean, the improvements that he's made from week 1 to this point are remarkable. And that goes to the work that he puts in, the preparation, the getting there at 5:30 in the morning, taking the coaching. It's not what you heard about Robert Griffin III, and I'm not continuing to dump on him, but if comparisons are being made between Jaden Daniels and Robert Griffin, it's night and day. This guy is so much more prepared to be an NFL quarterback than Griffin ever was. Now, you could say Griffin was something of a trailblazer because other than Cam Newton the year before, nobody had ever seen a running quarterback like this and who could throw the ball like this. Maybe Michael Vick had some of those things, but they unleashed an offense on the rest of the league that they weren't prepared for. And they were able to use that run-pass option so effectively when defenses weren't ready for it. That was brilliance by the Shanahans. But in terms of the way these two quarterbacks move on the field, there's no comparison. And I don't think it's an accident, a happy accident, that we're going into week 18 of the season, game 17, and Jaden Daniels looks healthy. Now, I also think that you could look at the 3-game losing streak that they had, where they lost to Pittsburgh and they lost to Philadelphia and they lost to the Cowboys in 3 consecutive weeks, that the ribs were bothering Jaden Daniels. He seems to be fully healthy now, said that last night, and it looks like that's the way he's playing. I'm going to get to this. This is over the weekend. It was before the game, but it was a pregame feature that was done on ESPN, and it was with not Phil Simms, but Chris Simms, and it goes to what he has been able to do for this franchise. Now, this is before the game, and I think you feel this now maybe more after last night, this savior thing. But this was on the field. It's on the practice field. Chris Simms, not a great NFL quarterback, but he had a 5 or 6 year career and was a highly recruited high school player. Had a career at Texas, and at one point people thought he might be a star. But he was one-on-one with Daniels here, who is not a great interview. He doesn't do these things particularly well. But I thought this was very insightful, and some of the things he said about his rookie year might give you a hint as to why he has been so successful. This was Jaden Daniels in the pregame feature. You saw little bits and pieces of it if you were watching the pregame on NBC last night. But this is part of the long-form interview where he talks to Chris Simms about this season and what he's been able to do for this fan base.
You kind of seem like the gift to the Commander fan base. Do you kind of feel that like they're looking at you right now as the savior?
I mean, I don't say I feel it, but I mean, you can hear the buzz around town and everything.
Right.
Everybody's always excited to see me, and they let it be known. They're very expressive of how they feel, whether it's on social media, when I'm at the games, if they see me somewhere in the store, everybody's just so excited to, get back to the winning that we've done this year.
Are you aware of like the history of the franchise? Like when I grew up in the 80s, right? I'm an old man 80s guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Washington franchise, the Redskins, the Commanders now were like the team. Are you aware of that history?
100%. I mean, we got a legend in here, Doug Williams.
So you know Big Doug.
I know, and,
right.
And DQ does a great job of, not letting that go unnoticed. He always talks about the past and, man, these what these guys did, and just how they played. I mean, we got Darryl Green come back, Joe Gibbs. You got Doug in here, so I mean, it's always great to have those guys around.
So Joe Theismann.
I know Joe Theismann. All those guys come back around.
Right. Damn, changed his name to rhyme with Heisman. Joe Theismann, crazy Jersey guy like me. The next thing I think I just want to hit on is really like your playing style. First thing is your throwing mechanics. How are they so repeatable? It just seems effortless. I talk about on TV all the time, it's like you never miss a target. I know you miss every now and then, but it feels like when somebody's open, you hit it. Where did you get that? Who taught you your throwing mechanics growing up?
I think it's just going over reps. I had a quarterback coach early on as like a mentor to me now, Ryan Porter. Back home in California, he helped me out, and then I work out 3D QB with Taylor Kelly.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, I kind of started understanding the biometric side of stuff, and the more reps you get, and like, oh, okay, this is how it feels, and when it doesn't feel right, you kind of know, okay, this is what I need to do. So just constantly talking to them, be conscious of your feet, everything else will follow.
Yeah.
But for me, that's kind of where I just get it from. Is like, man, over these past couple years, 2 years, man, I got so many reps in. I kind of know, like, okay, this is gonna be a good bar.
You
this
feel
might
like
be
a
short,
machine. I mean,
and, stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like I say, like, when a basketball player shoots a ball, they kind of know when it's going in or not.
Yeah. You could feel when it comes off your hand the right way, and you go,
for
"Oh,
sure.
that's coming out the right way, right where I want it." Nice spiral.
Yep.
All of that. Did you got baseball in your background at all?
No baseball.
I didn't think you did.
No baseball.
Right, it's so popular right now with the Mahomes sidearm stuff and all of that. But I could tell you've been what, basketball?
Basketball,
football.
track, and football.
Okay, all right. So that leads us into our next thing is your legs a little bit. Yeah, you run like a wide receiver. I mean, you're legit. When did you know you were like fast or one of the fastest guys on the team?
I mean, growing up, I ran track, so I kind of always knew I was one of the fastest on the team. And then in college, you race, like, I used to race against the receivers at LSU. So I used to race against Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, those type of guys. So it was always good competition, and you just trying to find a way to challenge yourself every time.
How did those races? I
I'm
want to know
faster
now.
than they can see this now. I'm faster.
He's faster than
I'm
you
faster
guys.
than Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas.
You got that? Both of you, just receivers. You're not the quarterback god over here. He's faster. Okay, all right. So a lot of talk, about your running, your throwing, incredible. How about the other aspect of the game, which you were like kind of dissected about? You're supposed to be hurt by now. You didn't know that? You weren't supposed to be able to take this NFL pounding. You're supposed to be on the ground here with like an outline around you. How have you dealt with that?
I mean, it's football. At the end of the day, you're going to get hit.
Right.
You just got to be smart about it. And when I got here, DQ and them and Cliff, they all said, hey, we don't want them to change. But, when Coach Henry used to tell me this, like, hey, when the journey's over, the journey is over. Just know, protect yourself, live to see another play. So over the time of this season, it's kind of grown even more. I mean, it's getting colder outside. You don't really want to get hit as much.
Right.
But, when the game on the line, you might have to take a little hit.
A little more of a chance, right?
For
Have
sure.
you had to do an extra emphasis on your weight through this season? Like let me eat the extra meal or?
No, I think for me, have a routine that's consistently the same, and it's like, okay, when I weigh in, this is what I usually weigh in at.
Right.
And then from there, it's like, okay, I feel good, and this is kind of what I talked about with them. Was like, hey, this is the weight I feel good at. Around 205, I feel good around there.
Right.
And then, they respect it and everything, so I always weigh in around there. Might weigh a little heavier one day.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't change. I mean, if
You're
you get hit, you can be 250 and get hit. You can be 185 and get hit.
They hit you the right way, you're in trouble.
100%.
How do you balance, like so many times when quarterbacks can run like you, right? I played against Michael Vick and all these guys where the first guy's not open, I'm running.
Yeah.
You don't use that as a crutch. You kind of only run when you have to.
Yeah.
What's your thought process as far as staying in the pocket, reading coverage, and then when to get out of jail to run and use those legs?
Yeah, I think just the understanding of the offense and knowing, kind of eliminating nowhere to go with the ball. It's like, okay, if this is not open, I know 2 is here. And then by that time, it's like, okay, maybe 3. If not, let's get a scramble drill, because those guys on the other side of the ball, they make plays, and they get paid to make plays too. So you don't want to take no sacks, you don't want to get hit. But from there, it's kind of just understanding, okay, 1, 2, or maybe the O-line got big, get a peek.
Okay,
let's go in the scramble drill, keep your eyes up down the field. Because, I mean, that's kind of when I got here, that's where all the plays are really made, in those scramble drill type of modes.
Right.
The receivers working, they do a great job.
So 1, 2, 3, run. That's kind of your general thing.
Yeah.
Maybe against the Eagles, it's 1, 2. Let me take a peek and then do something like that.
Maybe. I mean, it depends how the game goes.
Right.
But my guys do a great job of getting open.
Definitely, and protecting all right too. Has anything been hard this year? What's the hardest thing of the NFL season to you?
How long the season is.
Okay, all right.
How long the season is. I mean, from pre-draft, you were working out for the combine. You go to the combine, pro days, draft, mini camp, OTAs, all that, man. It's been long.
It's a grind.
And I mean, that's kind of everybody told me. I was like, in the back of my mind, you hear it, like, man, your rookie year is gonna be the longest year. your career. It's like, you kind of like, okay, I understand, I hear you. I don't really understand it till you get into week 12.
Right.
And the college season's about to end.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I got
You got a
6,
whole
7
lot
more
more
games.
left.
Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Right. It is true. Well, you got a good offseason coming. Let me just tell you. One is coming for sure. I mean, you got money in your pocket, all of it. All right, I got to ask you about the draft class, right? I mean, there's always like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, when they were playing against each other, they wake up and check the paper to see how they did. You must scope out the draft class and what's going on with the other rookies, right?
Man, I mean, I'm excited for everybody in our draft class. I think my draft class was kind of like super tight-knit. I mean, especially off the quarterbacks.
So you guys got along together off the field
For
really
sure.
well, too.
Yeah. I mean, I keep up with all those guys and how they playing. I mean, I'm obviously playing Mike this week.
Right.
And I talk to Mike. We always checking on each other. I keep up with what Bo's doing. He's doing a phenomenal job. Caleb over there doing his thing.
Yep.
You got Drake over there doing his thing. So it's been awesome to see those guys kind of flourish in their different situations and, still go out there and play with confidence, play football, and have fun with it.
That's Jaden Daniels before the game with Chris Sims as the game was broadcast on NBC last night. Commanders winning in overtime 30-24. This is ESPN 630. I'm Andy Pollin. And the reason that you're not hearing what we call imaging, any of the fancy sounds that, says what station you're listening to or commercials or anything like that, we're playing with one hand tied behind our back today. There was a power outage in our building on Jennifer Street in Northwest D.C., and because of that, some of the equipment that is used to broadcast this show and other shows has not yet come back to life. The engineers are working on it, but we do not have the computer sound effects right now. So I am working with a microphone and a computer which has what we call sound bites in them, like what you just heard, the interview that was used as part of a pregame feature last night on NBC. And so that's the circumstance we're in. If you'd like to listen to me babble on about what happened last night and where this franchise is right now and a remarkable turnaround in a short period of time, that's what we're going to be doing for a while. I don't know about the availability of the Bram Weinstein show. Again, that's a technical problem that's being sorted out right now. But if things are back to life, we'll have him at 11 o'clock. You got me in the meantime and lots of reaction from last night's game. There's normally a sounder, they call that a sounder, which goes along with the update. That's not available, but the update is, and we are brought to you by NATCA, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. They bring you home safely. Commanders 3-point favorites heading to Dallas for the regular season finale Sunday. That's a 1 o'clock game, which actually still has meaning for Washington. They win it and likely head to Los Angeles to play the 10-6 Rams, lose, and they likely head to Philadelphia for a third meeting with the Eagles, who have clinched the NFC East at 13-3. But the Commanders are in the playoffs for the first time in 4 years, and yet another Jaden Daniels legacy-adding performance. A touchdown drive in overtime to beat Atlanta 30-24. They get to 11 wins for the first time since starting 11-0 in 1991. Hockey, 12:30 New Year's Eve afternoon game for the Caps tomorrow against Boston here. There were 4-2 losers at Detroit last night, but Alex Ovechkin scored another goal. He has 2 since returning from the broken leg Saturday and now needs only 25 to pass Wayne Gretzky, and the Wizards are home tonight against the Knicks. D.C. weather, partly sunny, high 61. Andy Pollin, ESPN 630. How about Ovechkin, by the way? How about that? When you heard broken leg, optimistically, they were talking in the early part of 2025. It was 40 days of recovery. You saw video that was put on social media of him skating like 2 weeks after he suffered the leg injury. And most people are on crutches for 40 days. And once you get off crutches, there's a rehab period, and you're limping around for a while, and you're not thinking about putting on ice skates and playing in the National Hockey League. But Russian machine never breaks. And here we are. He's 25 away from passing Wayne Gretzky, which, as time moves on, it becomes more and more likely that it's going to happen this season, even with the injury, which kept him out, I believe it was 11 games, maybe more, but I think I heard 11 games is what he missed, or maybe 16 games, something like that. But he's back in the lineup, and in 2 games he scored 2 goals, and we'll see what happens tomorrow afternoon in what is a 12:30 faceoff. Seems to me they used to play New Year's Day, and maybe now they moved it to New Year's Eve because tomorrow not tomorrow, but Wednesday, you've got all the college football playoff games. So they're doing that. Let me get to this. This was after the game, and the NBC crew was all set up, and they had older guys on. One, Doug Williams, and also Bobby Wagner. And again, not dumping on Doug Williams, not Doug Williams, but Robert Griffin III. You know, when RG3 was here, now Doug, I think, came after the 2012 season. I think that's right. So Griffin was on the roster for another 3 years, right? 2013, 14, and 15. 15 didn't play at all. 2013 is when he got benched when they were 3-10. And then 2014, that's when Jay Gruden took over, a combination of injury and benching. And then in 2015, because they had extended his contract, picked up the rookie option, which at that time wasn't guaranteed. But if he had gotten hurt during the 2015 season, the guarantee would have kicked in had he not been able to pass a physical going into 2016. So they couldn't put him on the field. They had to keep him in bubble wrap. And Doug was there, and he was asked, well, you know, your guy's been through this. You know, can you mentor him? He says he didn't want the mentorship. Well, that's totally not the case with Jaden Daniels. This has been a really fascinating relationship to watch, very much encouraged by the coaching staff. Doug is a respected person in the NFL, throughout this community, works in a variety of roles for the team. And it has been really, especially for somebody like me, who even remembers Doug Williams when he was a player at Grambling, and I was at the Super Bowl where he had that miraculous performance against Denver with 4 touchdown passes. And to see what's happening between the past and the present with them is really something heartwarming to see. And on the post-game set last night, I think it's Zach Collinsworth, Chris Collinsworth's son, hosts this. Tony Dungy is on this, and Rodney Harrison as well. And they welcomed Doug Williams to the set after the win.
You know, I've been here going on my 11th year, and to see this happen when Dan and Adam come in here, man, the way they've transformed this whole organization is unbelievable.
You told me before the game that Dan Quinn has made it so everybody's enjoying coming into the building. The atmosphere is different. Just tell us what's been different.
Well, you know what? When Dan walked through the building, when he got the job, he walked through the building and I was standing on the side, and he looked at me, he came to me, and he hugged me. You realize at that time, with everybody in there, realized we had somebody who's going to make everybody part of this whole thing. And he came in with the brotherhood thing, and that's exactly what we believe in at this particular time.
Jaden Daniels walked in the stadium with your jersey on. He could have picked any other jersey, but he chose yours. What does that mean to you?
Well, you know what? I think it's a young fella who's showing respect to me, and you know, and I love that. But it almost makes you embarrassed that he did that, because nobody knew he was going to do it. But I appreciate him. You know, I met Jaden in 2018, and he's been the same guy from the day I met him in 2018 to the night.
How about the way that they closed out this game? Coach, you said at halftime, they're struggling to run. You know what they're going to do in the second half? Jaden Daniels' legs are going to start getting going. They sure did. They did in overtime. And how about the experience of a Super Bowl champion like Zach Ertz and how he showed up in OT?
Yeah. I mean, it was just what you expected, and Jaden's been doing it all year, and this team believes that he's going to do it in these big moments, don't they, Doug?
It's no surprise. You know, everybody in that locker room believe in Jaden Daniels. Give Jaden Daniels football, we got a chance. And you can tell it when we won the toss in the overtime, everybody on the sideline was jumping for joy because Jaden Daniels had the ball in his hand.
What type of relationship do you have with him?
Well, you know what? All the guys, I got a good relationship with all the guys, but Jaden is one of those special relationships that you don't have to say anything. It's just that respect. Every morning I come in, he's already here. 6:30, he's already here, and he see me all the time, and he just walk by my office and say, hey, Doug, and just keep going, because he know what it means.
What advice would you give him, or have you given him?
Well, you know what? It's hard to give Jaden advice when you think about the room that he's in with Cliff and all the other guys, Brian Johnson.
But they ain't you. They ain't Doug Williams.
Yeah, but you know,
they haven't won Super Bowls, right?
Right.
I really think he respects me, and I don't want to get into coaching with him, but I talk about everyday life. You know, his mom is here every week. I talk to her, and then I'll just say, hey, man, we need you. And he said, I got you. Just like it was his birthday last week. And when his birthday came around, I said, hey, man, you going to go out to dinner? He said, no, we got to get this win. And when he won against Philadelphia, they went to dinner.
Were you as mature as him when you were a rookie?
You know what? I'm going to say no. I mean, this guy's not just a rookie. This guy's a football player at a young age.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what it is, he knows how to do it, and he's matured from a standpoint of knowing what this game is all about, what it means to him and what it means to his organization.
That is a heck of a way to put it. That's Doug Williams on the postgame show last night. He's not a rookie. He's a football player, a young football player. That's what it is. And he is. I mean, he's emerged as the leader of this team. You could say there are other leaders, and one of them is Bobby Wagner, who was brought in specifically for this purpose. When they signed Wagner, and I keep making this comparison to Jack Pardee when he came in with the old Ramskins in 1971, but very similar type of guy, linebacker, very cerebral, knew where to put people in the right places, had seen it all, and was coming to a team. And Jack Pardee was an excellent performer for this team in the 2 first years of George Allen, 71 when they went to the playoffs, and then 72 when they made it to the Super Bowl. And Bobby Wagner has been that. And he has fulfilled not only the role of leadership, but he's, once again, accumulated 100 tackles. He's been as productive on the field as he's ever been, and at age 34, I bet he comes back for another season at least. I thought it was interesting, too, last night. I don't know whether you saw the pregame introductions, but he I forget what school he played at, but he also said that he was at Howard. He said, and Howard. He's working on his master's at Howard. This is a guy who's really shown the way for this team, not just on the defense, but because of the relationship that he's developed, this big brother thing that he's got going on with Jaden Daniels, and you can see it every day, especially if you watch, how they interact in the locker room when they show some of if you check these out online or you hear some of the interviews or see them on TV. And so as Doug Williams was talking, Bobby Wagner, with his shoulder pads off, most of his uniforms still on, came over to the set, gave Doug Williams a big hug, and joined the conversation with Zach Collinsworth, Tony Dungy, and others who were on there.
And this guy here, man, when he walked through the door, you know the first thing I told him? I told him leadership walked through the door. And that's exactly what he did.
And you ain't going to find no better leader than him. When he retired, he's first ballot of the Hall of Fame. I'll tell you that.
Appreciate that, folks.
Well, that leadership's going back to the playoffs. Washington has clinched the trip to the playoffs. How's that sound to you?
It feels amazing, man. Just not only for this team, but this city. We've been wanting to bring something good to this city, and I'm glad we got it into the dance.
Sure. Go ahead, Rob.
How special? When did you know that you guys had something special with Jaden?
Man, I think it was OTAs. We watched him prepare. He was coming in early every day, and the first time he got out there at training camp, he was so confident and understood what he needed to do, and he just made plays and had fun.
They love you, man.
Tactical question about tonight. First half, Bijan Robinson's getting some running lanes. Algiers getting some running lanes. Second half, they get nothing. What did you guys do at halftime?
We had to be more disciplined. I think first half we were kind of getting out of our gaps. He was finding an open hole, and so the second half we did a better job of containing them and putting them in like passing situations.
Any call changes you made? Anything differently you did?
We didn't do anything. Honestly, it was just us executing. I don't think we did a good job of executing the first half, and we came out and did a little better job. And Coach Wick called a great second half.
Talk about a couple of those underrated defenders that you have. Jeremy Chin, Frankie Louvu. Those guys, you watch them on tape. Those guys, they ball.
Man, between Chin, Oos, those guys come out and ball. And, I watched Oos from a long time, him making plays. I just think he wasn't in a situation where the world could see him. And so, when he came over here, I think the world is seeing how good not only him but Chin really are, and it's fun playing with those guys. You
played over 200 NFL games. How do you continue to play at such a high level and take care of yourself?
Man, honestly, I've just been blessed. God has blessed me. I take good care of my body, like you said, and I'm surrounded by good people that give me good advice, and I listen no matter what age I am.
Absolutely. Well, Doug, you mentioned that when Bobby walked through the door, you said leadership just walked through that door into this building. What has struck you watching him lead this team now that he's been there?
Well, the way he's done things, from preparing to play every week, but just coming through the door every day and like talk about Jaden, training camp, I watched him in training camp. You don't know I was watching him, but I just watched him and Jaden and how they got along. And to me, that says a lot. A young rookie coming in and how these older guys took to him, I knew right then that Bobby was the guy that we needed from a leadership standpoint.
Why was that important to you to develop that relationship with the quarterback?
Honestly, we from the same area, the IE, and so I understand, like, coming in, not knowing nothing. I remember being a rookie, and, as a veteran, your thing to do is just share your scars, and so I just try to share my scars, and I'm sitting on the opposite side of him, so I give him a perspective that he might not see.
You played in Super Bowls, you played in playoff games, you played in a lot of these clinchers. What was your message to the team this week getting ready for a game that could get you into the playoffs?
We just wanted to treat it like a regular game. I think sometimes when you get in a situation, you build this game up and you make it more than what it is, and so we were just trying to focus on making it just a game, and when we won, we knew what it meant.
How nice is it to be part of this culture change and just see everything change?
It's amazing, man. These fans have been amazing. From the moment I walk in, they embrace me, embrace everybody, because we had a lot of new guys that they didn't know, and so we had to come out and make plays for them. But this is a really fun place to play, and our culture is really starting to show, and the city feels it.
As we've just been walking around D.C. the last couple of days, and as you can hear right now, the Commanders are on everybody's mind in this city. When you leave and you go out and you're in the community, what's it like to feel what's happening right now?
It's amazing, man. We know what it was before we got here, and between the ownership and Coach Quinn and everybody coming in, they felt the energy. It's a new energy. A lot of people thought we weren't going to be good, but we knew we had a special group, and we just had to go out there and show them, and they were the ones believing with us.
You know what it's like to win a Super Bowl in this city. What's it like for you at this point in time?
Unbelievable, to be honest with you. I've been here, like I say, 10 years, and I've never seen nothing like this since I've been here the last 10 years.
Wow.
And to see this happen, the way Dan came in, the way the new ownership treats the whole organization, I think in itself says a lot. And I think these fans understand that, and they deserve it.
Well, you can tell they appreciate it.
Bobby, talk to me about Michael Penix and what you see from a young quarterback.
Man, he was going out there. When we saw him play the last week, he was making some really good throws. He was getting the ball out on time. He was making the right reads. And so, we knew we were going to have to, make him one-dimensional. If they got their run game, it was going to open up the boots, put him in a lot of situations that he wanted to be. So we just tried to make it uncomfortable for him and not let him just sit back there and just make the throws he can make.
Yeah, he seemed very comfortable in the pocket last week, no matter what the Giants threw at him, 5-man pressures, 6-man pressures. And even when you guys were pressuring him, he stood in the pocket.
Yeah, he did a good job. We tried to throw different looks at him. He kept his poise. But at the end of the day, we just wanted to pressure him. I felt towards the end of the game we did a better job of getting to him and making it uncomfortable for him. And, we got this win.
Yeah, they did. But I'll tell you this, and that was the post-game show on NBC on the field, and Bobby Wagner, Doug Williams coming over to talk to the crew. This is the future of quarterbacking in the NFL. Whatever you grew up thinking about, guys like Peyton Manning, who stood tall in the pocket, and even Tom Brady, who could run on occasion. These are superb athletes who, sadly, years ago, wouldn't begin this opportunity. That an African-American kid who showed up to play youth football was sent to play running back or wide receiver. And the evolution of the position, which has helped along the way with Doug Williams and what he did in winning Super Bowl 22, the first African-American quarterback to start one, to win one, and become the MVP, that has changed the game. And, Steve Young said this, and people went, "Oh, you must be kidding." He said he didn't think Peyton Manning would be able to play today. Maybe that's an overstatement, but I don't know if Peyton Manning would be who he is or who he was as a Hall of Fame quarterback. Tom Brady, would he have been as great as he was if he came along in today's game? I know it's different, but these are the guys who are going to take this game to the next level, to the next evolution of it. And they are guys who can both throw and run. Michael Penix has had 2 ACL surgeries, but he, as they said last night, still runs a 4.4. Didn't have to run as much, but also, on top of that, is an effective passer. Now, he missed a lot last night. He was 19 of 35 with an interception. And really, if he completes some of those passes where he had wide open receivers and overthrew them, maybe it's a different game. But it's only his second start. He's coming along. And they, in retrospect, they made a terrible move in bringing in Kirk Cousins, who had some good games after he got off to a really slow start. And then before he got benched, I think he'd thrown 1 touchdown pass and 9 interceptions in 5 games. this is a guy who looks like he's going to be part of this new group of players. And the best of the best at the moment looks to be Jaden Daniels. Can Caleb Williams get to that level with the right coaching? We'll see. But that's how the game has changed, and it's changed for the better. The quarterbacks are more exciting, and it is taken the game to a place where it's really fun to watch, and just watching what Jaden Daniels was able to do in that fourth quarter, where they, as Chris Collinsworth, I think, did a really good job of saying how they defensed everything perfectly, except for the possibility that he can weave his way through. He compared him to a skier, to like a slalom skier, just finding these openings and getting the way. And Penix may eventually come close to that level. But, this is the era. This is the era of rookie quarterbacks being able to come in and play. They've had lots of experience. In the case of Penix, he spent 4 years at Indiana, played 3, then transferred and played 2 more at Washington and got them to the national championship game. They don't come in raw anymore. Used to be a guy would come in, and we've had him here, like Dwayne Haskins, the tragic Dwayne Haskins, started 1 year at Ohio State. Clearly wasn't ready to play in the NFL. It's not the case anymore. That's how that works. This was fun last night. After the win, Jeremy Reeves, who's been a Pro Bowl special teamer, he's got a great story. He was cut by the Eagles. He was cut by this team a number of times and has managed to fight his way back and become the special teams leader of this team. After the game, and this idea, I should have looked this up, but this goes back well over a decade, and it was not a playoff game. It was before the playoff, and it might not have even qualified as a BCS game, but it was the big boys, Oklahoma playing Boise State. And Boise State pulled an upset with a Statue of Liberty play, and the player that scored the winning touchdown immediately went over to his cheerleader girlfriend and proposed. In this case, the final gun went off, and Jeremy Reeves went over to the corner of the end zone, got down on one knee, and proposed to his longtime girlfriend, Michaela Worley, with the NBC cameras and Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth still broadcasting the game.
Somebody got engaged. All right. Jeremy Reeves, who played 22 special team snaps, has the most special one of all. Take a knee at the end of the game for victory. There you go. Jeremy Reeves getting engaged here after the game. Of course she said yes. You're in the playoffs now, right?
Awesome. Of course she said yes. She's 28 years old. She's a physician's assistant, and they have known each other for a long, long time. She was a former volleyball player at the University of Louisiana Monroe, and they have been both lovers and friends for a long time. And he had said he was considering asking her to marry her and wanted to do it after last week, but decided he wasn't going to do it even though they won the game. And he said he had that ring and it was burning a hole in his pocket. And I don't know whether he had this in his uniform or not. He must have had it stashed somewhere on the sidelines, but he had the ring ready to go. And he said, I hate losing, so there's no way I could have done that in the right spirit after a loss. If we win this game, it's destiny. He said Worley had been his best friend since high school, has supported him through the highs and lows of his football career, including when he blew out his ACL last October. She said, she's earned it. I can't say enough about her. When I was at my lowest last year, she was there to pick me up every day. She showed up. And he was from University of South Alabama. And again, an undrafted free agent by the Eagles who fought and clawed his way into this position to become an all-pro special teamer. Dan Quinn, his job is to know everything that goes on the field. Apparently, he didn't know everything.
Jeremy Reeves proposed to his girlfriend, so I don't know if you like.
Oh, right on. No,
that.
I did not know that. Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, he should have done that long ago. He could only screw that up, so I'm glad that he did that. That's a great call by him.
So that added to all the joy of last night. And think about this. The last time that this team had won 11 games, you have to go back to November 17th of 1991. And they won at Pittsburgh 41-14 to go 11-0. And many people believe that this was going to be an undefeated team, that they were going to do what no team had done since the Miami Dolphins, and no team has done since, finish the season undefeated. They lost the next week to the Cowboys, but they did get 11 wins. So you're talking about a period of 33 years and, about 6 weeks? that is really incredible. And the celebration goes on. Anyway, that is a wrap for me. Hopefully our technical problems will be settled by tomorrow. Bram Weinstein is next, and I'll see you back here for the last day of 2024 at 9 a.m.